Welcome to The Pulse. I'm Rory Carroll, Editor-in-Chief at Jalopnik. I'm joined here by Davide at Ferrari in Italy.
Hello.
At Barak at BMW in Germany.
Hi.
And Doug from Epic in London. Today we're going to see if we can identify some trends that are set to change everything we know about how cars are designed, built, and sold. One of those trends is a digital shift. The last several years in the automotive industry have been shaped by a tech-enabled acceleration. Design, engineering, marketing, and sales have become more scientific, but more importantly, the time between the design part and the sales part has been shortened dramatically. Today, we're going to talk about what could end up being an even more dramatic shift. A shift to imagining, designing, testing, redesigning, all with instant feedback to shorten the distance between what can be imagined and what exists in the real world and in virtual worlds. Specifically, we'll talk about how Unreal Engine, the same tool that brought us visuals for both The Mandalorian and Ford versus Ferrari, can bring us, yes, an F8 Tributo or an M8 Competition, but also a virtual mock-up in virtual environment so realistic that you can use it to test and validate interior ergonomics. We're going to cover some intros real quick, let you know who you're talking to. Doug, why don't you kick us off?
I'm Doug Wolf. I work at Epic Games in the Unreal Engine Enterprise Department. I'm a business development manager, but basically what I do is I work with automotive companies, primarily in Europe, and help them do cool stuff with Unreal Engine.
Davide?
I am Davide Ferrari. I work for Ferrari. Been doing that for the past 16 years. I have 20 years experience in IT, different verticals. Lately, I am concentrating on graphics. That's why I'm here today, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Glad you're here. Barak?
Yeah, my name is Barak, and I'm working for BMW. I'm computer scientist and in the IT department. And my current role is IT product owner for VR, AR. And yeah, I'm working for 7 years right now for real-time 3D technologies and bringing 3D to everyone at BMW.
Unreal Engine, as most of you probably know, is the world's most open and advanced real-time 3D creation tool. What started as a game engine can now be used not just to create games, but build experiences and immersive virtual worlds. Over the course of the last several years, we've seen a huge digital shift hit the automotive industry. Right now, we're watching the rise of electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, but we're also seeing this concept of a car's digital IP. Not just the physical car, something that exists in a virtual world where you can create car configurators, digital car launches, virtual showrooms, put cars in video games and feature films, and explore marketing opportunities we haven't even imagined yet. My understanding is that you guys specifically, and then I think a lot of the interest on the part of automakers into what some of the stuff that's being done with game engines, that stems from an early interest in augmented reality and virtual reality. Can you give me kind of an idea of how we got from, hey, we need a VR or an AR solution to what game engines are being used for today?
We are using currently VR, especially for use cases where we want to experience our future cars out of the perspective of an end user. Checking surfaces and all other design concepts, you can still do it on a just flat screen. But the main advantage of VR was to really see it out of the perspective of the potential end user. And with that, we started like 5 years ago with the first VR project in our design department to experience the future car, which will be like on the street several years after, and to really bring the features, the new functionalities to the decision makers. The advantage of VR is it's like the reality, so the entry level for non-experts is much, much lower. Just enter this, and what do you think about that?
This is like a clay model, right? So you're showing a car early in a design stage, but you can sit in it, you can see how it looks in the environment versus just having a huge pink piece of clay in a studio, right?
Yeah, and the main advantage is clay is more static. You can present a static model. But our cars are getting more and more digital. So we have digital services. If you open the door, we have different lightings working together, interacting together, and such kind of new digital services even during having a ride. So it's not possible to present it just on a hardware mockup. Of course, it's not just a device. So you need also the tool for it, so application for that. And using game engines helped us to enable to visualize in the early phase such kind of new features of our future cars.
I think, to be honest with you, knowing what I know about your projects, right, is it goes even further than that. I think the first thing that when people pick up like a VR headset is like, oh, look, I can recreate reality, right? So, okay, good. So I have a new vehicle concept. I can show you that. That's great, right? I can go in, I can sit in it. It's much more than I'm getting from the clay. But the sort of next level that I think you guys kind of got to quite early was you could try new things out in VR without having to worry about whether or not the hardware even existed for it, right? Like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if when I touch the door handle, the door disappeared, right? Instead of having the engineers go and figure out how to do that, you can show the concept and see if anybody likes it before you have to go and build the hardware.
If you have hardware mockups and if you have changes on your CAD models, the integration is much more harder because you have to change your hardware mockup. But it's often that we have daily, weekly changes on our CAD side. So it enables us to integrate more often, not just like a few times a year, but weekly or daily. That it enables new ideas and really in a fast way.
David, how do you show people the kind of value case for this?
I provide comparisons between physical and digital, and also I find solutions to problems or opportunities to take things that are normally too costly or time-consuming to do in the physical, and then can be accomplished with a few days of hard work on the engine. So I strongly believe in showing, in proof of concepts instead of just projections. Could be internal or external, it doesn't really matter. But the point is, when can we show them something? The point is showing something that is as close to the product as possible, the minimum viable product.
Once the car is produced and finalized, I know you both have some experience with a virtual showroom and getting real people into real cars that they could potentially buy. How is this game engine change that?
In the early phase, you present the future car to the designer engineers. And if we go into the dealerships, you present his potential future car of a potential end user to him. So it's just a topic of time. So like in the design, we're several years before, and in a dealership, we are presenting the future car of our customer to him. So he can configure it and see really his configuration, because we do not have all cars in each configuration in a dealership as a physical car. So we can really bring him his individual car before he's buying it or getting it.
One of the things I'm interested in is how that enables the connection between the designer and the customer. Do you know what I mean? Because before, without these technologies, right, the designer is quite far early in the stage. But if you have a digital version, it's almost like if it's the same experience, then the designer knows that that's the way a customer could potentially experience it in the same way, in the same VR. It's almost like a direct communication of the idea from the designer's head to the customer's head.
Exactly. I mean, if we have such kind of new concepts inside VR available, you can of course use it for our internal decision makers, for our engineers, designers, but it could also bring the concepts, new ideas also to potential end customer. Or you are able to do in the early phase also, how do potential customer think about a new functionality, new feature or new concept. But having in VR, you can easily scale and go also worldwide on different location and present such kind of new topics, features to our end customer.
It's actually quite interesting because a couple of different companies have expressed the idea that if the dealership experience, if they have VR in the dealership, right, they could focus test through the buying process. You're identifying your VIPs, right? Because those people are more engaged. They're maybe buying some of the cars towards the top end of your range. At some point, as a perk to your VIPs, you could bring them in the dealership and kind of focus test them on a new car concept under confidentiality rules and everything. It's in VR, so they can't even take pictures of it away with them. And then you can kind of see what it feels like for your top customers to get that sort of input into the design of the vehicle in a way that they never could, right? Aside of flying everybody into a focus group at your headquarters, this you could just have out in the field, right? And just have it as part of the VIP purchase experience is, oh, by the way, you've been on a Tuesday night, you're invited to a champagne reception where you can feedback on the new concepts that we're currently working on at X company. And what I do like specifically about the BMW story is the way that you guys are sort of replicating those same technologies early on in the design process, but then also down at the marketing and sales process. You find all sorts of points within the life cycle that people are using Unreal Engine. So you got design teams doing early design validation, concept validation, surface validation, to full design concept pitches and design thematic videos. You've got the engineering teams that are using it to visualize CAD, visualize factory layouts, do training. Then you have the sort of normal marketing uses where you have images, videos coming from Unreal Engine, but also experiential marketing, so VR, AR, some kind of experience of the vehicle. And then you have the whole autonomous vehicle part of the companies that are generally using it for training autonomous algorithms, driving millions of miles. And then you have a variety of individual uses like the driving simulator, potentially some data visualization, these types of things as well. One of the most exciting recent developments in Unreal Engine and in the automotive space is the use of game engines for HMI applications. A cool new development is that we can actually take HMIs and power them with game engines. The power you unlock when you actually start running Unreal Engine on the car is actually pretty cool. Not only do you get better infotainment, sat nav, all those kind of functionalities. In connected dashboards, you can have really cool dials and speedometers and all sorts of interfaces that come up and give you general information about your drive. But you can also now move that into projection through heads-up display and a whole bunch of other cool stuff.
Today we have always different 3D expert systems. So for modeling, for construction, for production planning. So we have several expert systems, and often the decision makers have no idea how to use such kind of system. And if you have such kind of 3D asset, why don't we bring such assets also to the decision makers? Because what we regularly do, we make a screenshot out of this expert system and put this screenshot on a PowerPoint and send the PowerPoint to the decision maker and say, hey, ask him, what do you think about this? Is it a good idea or not?
You have to have some sort of engineering background or whatever to sort of get into the process of making the car, but maybe someone with a more artistic background or someone who doesn't have the same kind of particular schooling background can't contribute as much. But when the 3D is available and ready, we can get a more diverse set of viewpoints, a more diverse set of people that actually contribute to the product. I mean, we're seeing this happen across other industries, right? The ability for people who typically couldn't break into a very specific and expert-driven industry are now able to, maybe three of them can get together and make an indie game to talk about mental health or something like that. I think like there is something for our industry long-term for automotive that brings people of different backgrounds together when the technology is a little bit more open and easy to use.
Everyone can use open PDF file or PowerPoint file. Like 3D should be something comparable. And this is our goal at BMW. It's also a strategic initiative. So we are setting up, we call it a 3D experience space, where we are bridging the different expert systems, which we have. We have a bunch of expert systems, tools at BMW, and bridging those expert systems to this 3D experience space. So everyone can access the 3D assets which we have in our expert system and just go in there and make their decisions.
Does that go to the factory floor? Like, could we foresee training people that way in VR?
Yes, I mean, I can give you a sample for that. The last weeks we had big structural changes in our plant here in Munich. We prepared it for the new i4 model. And there, all the planning was done in Unreal Engine. And in the past, often in the early phases, you do it in 2D tools. And here, having it in 3D available in Unreal Engine, you could really talk to different disciplines. Because having it in 3D, you have access to a different level of detail, which was not possible in 2D. And so what you can do is that you can plan much, much more in the early phase before really having those changes. If you can do or see most of the problems beforehand, before doing those changes, it will save you a lot of time. And in the end, you will have better results and the changes will be more successful.
So going from these kind of massive production line engineering projects at BMW to the Ferrari factory, how does this stuff apply to Ferrari?
In Ferrari, it's all about the quality of the materials, the experience, the exclusivity. And having a gaming engine like Unreal Engine allowed us to experience it in the best possible way. It's all about giving justice to the product. If it's the early stage, when you're getting your product shown to decision makers or to customers that are ordering your product, which you will deliver only later because we manufacture on order. And virtual reality, for example, for us is a way of experiencing the product before it's actually being built.
So when you're talking about manufacturing to order, you're talking about building each car effectively a bespoke basis. So the shortening the distance between what the customer tells you they want, giving them a way to experience it before it's actually built, that seems like a massive shift.
Yeah, for us, moving to 3D was like the only possible way. We have millions of combinations. Having everything pre-made was not possible anymore. And having everything rendered before the client decides to order his own car, that was not possible anymore as well. So shifting to 3D is the only possible way for us. To the fact that we are actually pushing 3D in areas where we didn't use it before.
So one of the things that I've been wondering about as a journalist, we're used to either jetting off to a major international auto show or going to visit a factory or going to visit a racetrack or some environment. So I wonder if a technology like this can kind of bridge that.
Well, we recently launched the Portofino M as a total digital loans. And for the first time, we aligned the loans with the dealerships and the online web configurator because we thought that reaching everyone at the same time had significance in these times.
Previously, there was kind of gates that you would maybe have preview events for VIPs, and then maybe you would go to a motor show. Maybe like the vehicle wouldn't even be on the show floor. There would be a reveal at the motor show, and then the vehicle wouldn't even land on the show floor. There would just be an event at a motor show. But one of the things that was always kind of hard to do was kind of like absorb that fan response, like especially for a brand such as Ferrari, which has such a large fandom, right? So how have you found being able to sort of amplify your message with something like that was a purely digital launch? Like, how did it feel? Did it hit the mark? Do you think you hit a wider audience?
Yes, it also increased the complexity a lot, but it brings you the full 3D experience of the dealership, so the full configuration experience. And it is the first time we bridged the difference between the web, mostly designed for fans and prospects, and clients, and the experience that they can only have with an appointment at the dealership.
You know, once this digital IP is created and it exists in Unreal, that means that it also exists in feature films. Like we saw, obviously Marvel franchises using Unreal Engine, The Mandalorian, obviously. You see these environments being rendered in Unreal. When the car exists in Unreal, that means you could conceivably launch a car in a film, right? I mean, fairly easily. Maybe even a car that doesn't exist yet. Is that, talk about getting a car in front of a massive audience. I think we all remember the old M-Class being introduced in, I think, Jurassic Park 3, one of the Jurassic Park movies. Is that something that's being discussed or thought about?
We're taking a look into it, most definitely. As gaming engines have breached the reality barrier and they are becoming so realistic with the render of materials, difficult materials like carbon fiber, for example, or the introduction of ray tracing, full volume lighting. It's becoming so difficult to tell a real shooting from a virtual one. It's definitely something we are interested in.
Where you published the new M5, which was also integrated into Need for Speed, the new version, where you could also configure your car inside the game. So there are the trends there to bring the cars as a communication running over games on the market.
Today we have something in the configurator in the dealership we call the driving experience. At the end of the configuration process, we give out to the clients a video that's normally settled in the environment that we think more appropriate for the specific product to take away with the complete configuration of the Ferrari. So we have something like this. Today we are expanding the idea of these digital takeaways in different areas. And it's all rendered in real time in Unreal Engine.
And I think this is also a key point, since that the experience is not right just in the dealership. If you leave the dealership and go home, or your friends will ask you, hey, how does your potential car look like? And then you can just put your smartphone and say, hey, it looks like this. And it's animated. It's your personal configuration, animated, driving in a great environment.
Both your companies have extremely cool Unreal configurators. Configurator is often the entry point, right, for using a game engine within an automotive business. It'd be interesting to, like, almost as a thought experiment, what is better than a configurator that can be built off a configurator?
The experience must be seamlessly and independent from the location where you are. So it shouldn't be just focused to the dealership. Getting more input from your environment regarding your configuration, and having also placed your configured car in a scene, not just like as a 360 video as in the past, like to have it more interactive, animated. Or maybe if you're like, your son is playing Need for Speed at home in his console, that let you say, hey, do you want to play with your new car? Here, just put it onto your game, and then you will get direct feedback from him, whether it's good or not.
And it's also about changing your mind or adding something or increasing your experience with the product before it's delivered to you. So the idea is that you could open up a configuration, change something on the go, send it back to the dealer, discuss with him whether you prefer this or that. There's this kind of interaction without having to be physically inside the dealership. It's also something that definitely pays justice to the times and the product itself.
Have you seen customers becoming a little bit more adventurous with spec now that they're able to visualize it?
Yes, I've seen some examples, particularly in VR. For example, they totally enjoy experiencing different configurations when they can be there. There are some configurations that only matter when you can feel them, from the actual experience of being there. It's a constant communication between you, the dealer, and Ferrari. And new things come up and new requests come from the clients. We have, for example, a specific configuration process called tailor-made, where Ferrari are built custom-made upon your requests. We get requests for materials that we even thought that were possible, that are subject to a verification by design, by purchase, by engineering. So we are very open to customer suggestions. And the way to experience this is definitely digital.
And it's like the concept of you buying that car becomes so much more real even before it's delivered, because it's like you're manifesting your desire for that car in a configuration that lives with you. And that's a pretty big change to the buying process, especially a process such as Ferrari's, where there is so much input from the customer during the process, right?
The only way to get different people from different backgrounds together seeing the same thing is with their eyes.
Barak, is that something you're seeing too, as far as BMW, people experimenting a little bit more and being a little bit more open to maybe try something that they wouldn't be sure it would work if they were just imagining it?
Yes, of course. I mean, the customer can take over in a dealership also the configuration, like putting out a smartphone, scanning a QR code on the screen and say, okay, now I want to try this one. So giving the possibility to the customer makes it easier that they are more open to playing around. And also just trying out different alternatives, which is not always possible, like in classical configurators, because often we have like a lot of details and fine elements, like in an interior, where you really do not see the differences. And having using Unreal Engine with the visual quality makes you possible to see such kind of difference.
So what excites you, like, for the future of this technology, like as it progresses and as you progress in the ability to use it? What are you excited about?
Real-time ray tracing for everyone. That's really gonna break the barrier between fake and real. And for us, it's like a must go, because there are some materials that can only be rendered correctly if you ray trace them. So rasterization have given us much, and we accomplished so far, but now it's time for ray tracing.
Have you seen the 3080? It's a big unit, right? At the Founders Edition, you need to modify your PC case to get it in there.
Yeah, it's a real beast.
But that's the top end, right? Like when you see ray tracing hit mobile devices, you hit consoles and stuff like that, then all of a sudden you have that incredible reality just available in your pocket, basically.
Yeah, and think of it, Doug. Adopting gaming engines is all about companies using consumer products for enterprise use. And we've seen the same for computers and for video cards. We are no longer needing big investments in hardware, in software, in licensing to achieve our goals and the best results. And so I'm able to roll out the latest technology in the dealership, being able to leverage on all the advancements of the Unreal Engine because it's becomes so affordable. Even consoles have them today.
It's almost like Gran Turismo, let's say like a PS3 version, is the reason why we're all here today, to some degree, right? Because it was like, at some point, somebody played that game at a car company somewhere and said, hold on, I've just put $20,000, $40,000, $100,000 of workstation in, and this PS3 game, my car looks better in it. Why did that happen, right? And it was that realization that actually consumer entertainment hardware was hitting realistic images on a much lower spec, on a much lower cost than these giant systems that we were building internally. In a way, It was that kind of moment going off in a couple people's heads that sort of brought the idea of real-time technologies into the automotive industry.
And it's a funny story because when I started pushing for the adoption of gaming engines, and people were like, "What, gaming? No, we are a serious company. We manufacture cars." And I was like, "But look at the configuration in this game. No, like it's much better than what we have today, and it's so realistic, and it's so cheap to make, to produce, to distribute." That was my business case, showing people configuration options inside games.
I want to make 3D accessible to everyone. And you cannot make it accessible to everyone if you have really a specific hardware workstation for that kind of application. And when I go back like 7 years ago, where we had this cave setups with cluster management and 22 PCs just rendering one image, this is nothing about democratizing this technology, right? I mean, the first point was bringing it to a gaming PC. But I think still a gaming PC is too high entry level for bringing it to everyone, like to make it like a 3D PowerPoint or 3D PDF. So the next step will be streaming, like running it somewhere else in a cloud environment and just bring it into the browser, the experience. And I mean, the vision is, of course, also to bring it into VR glasses streamed. I mean, I know it's more a future.
My money is on mobile because NVIDIA just purchased ARM.
Yeah.
So something interesting is coming.
Yeah.
I think.
And how do you guys deal with the tension, right? Because there's an inherent tension that comes from this, right? Where we talk about, the physical object, the look and feel, You got to be there. You got to feel it in your heart. You got to have all these real touch points with a physical object. And now you guys are both at your respective companies preaching the value of the digital to the point that the value of the digital might even exceed the value of the physical in the long term, right? Because now if you talk about all the social media outputs, even YouTube videos of actual cars being driven are a huge contributor to the buying process, but that's a digital object, right? That's a digital asset. Digital for a long time in manufacturing industries has been a means to an end to get the physical out the door. Now we need strategies directly around digital. What's that like?
It's bringing form over function to digital.
And that's hard, right? Because you don't make digital products, right?
Yeah.
Epic Games, we make a digital product. Our expression is in the product we make on our computers. You guys sit at your computers to make something roll out of a factory, right? It's a disconnect, and
it's a big shift. It's a big shift, and it's still ongoing because for marketing communication purposes, it's much easier. As a manufacturing process, the idea of using digital instead of physical has a lot of resistance because of the ability to render and provide the experience of certain materials and certain conditions. However, it's an ongoing change, and I see more believers as we push forward. And also, with the presentation of Unreal Engine 5, the idea of the time to market from CAD or engineering data to actual visual data that you can consume because it's so close to reality is closing the gap. That's probably going to be the turning point.
If you look on Fortnite, there worldwide several people are coming together to solve a problem or a task, right? And if we like take it or abstract from that and like translating to the work we are doing at BMW, here the task is producing great cars. So the vision would be having this one integration game, right? Where everyone, like several hundred different partners, which are the online multiplayer gamer, bringing all their assets together on which they are currently working on. And to have this integration in one space, just do it interactively. And if you see any issues, solve them directly in this game and not making different cycles, talking about that. We should do that like that and put it on a PowerPoint, and the PowerPoint gets into the expert system and the expert is changing it, and then it goes back to the integration. Just shorten the cycles and do it interactively real time in one game.
When we talk about the metaverse, it's a concept that we've been strongly advocating at Epic for a while. And it's the idea that there's going to be a real-time 3D connected platform where all of our content is going to live, right? And it's going to have a strong social element because you're going to go in there and you're going to experience things with other people. And it will grow out of technologies that exist. I mean, things like Second Life or some of these things that were started as an alternate world from the get-go, it's too hard to boot something up like that from nothing. Its existing technologies will sort of grow and meld together to form the metaverse. And Fortnite is an early example of that. Fortnite has a lot of the characteristics of the metaverse, with people coming in for things like the Travis Scott concert in, tens of millions to experience something only in a digital way that wasn't a game, that the actual game of Fortnite was not what they were coming to see. They were coming to share in this digital experience. So the metaverse kind of end goal of that, if you extrapolate even further, right, that process is then happening with your potential customers, right? It's happening with creators in general in the world, and they're contributing to that too. So you have your experts and your partners integrating, but you're also integrating input. You're testing ideas. You're bringing people to their own personal style, and individual customers and consumers that will eventually buy that car contributing live while the whole thing is kind of coming together. The possibilities to sort of, take that journey of the configurator and walking out of the dealer and believing your car's in your pocket when it's not going to come for 9 months, that goes like to light speed when you're interacting in a digital world and you're contributing way before while the car is being kind of coming together as an idea. The whole world is contributing to it. It's the possibilities just are mind-boggling.
If we have the possibility to change something and see the results, the effects immediately, also our employees, our partner will be more open towards more trying it out. And then maybe having better ideas or alternative ideas, because testing out ideas, it's getting more cheap and not so much effort bringing it together and integrating.
Metaverse, again, it can be from what are you looking forward to? What excites you about that concept? I'm sure it's not living in the back of a dirty van in a scrap heap, Ready Player One style. That's not what anybody wants from the metaverse. Our metaverse is one of hope, right?
Yeah. No, it's about breaking the language barrier within the company, allowing people from different departments and different backgrounds and knowledge to speak with each other with visual messages, and also about gathering feedbacks from the clients, allowing them to give provide input about what they desire, where the product should go, how they would like it to transform, and use this feedback in a more direct way, more real-time way to go back to the client and show them what they just expressed. So reducing all these iterations and making them disappear, making them real-time, this will be nice. Yes.
So we've been talking a lot about the kind of more advanced use cases. You guys have obviously been at this for a while. If I'm watching this and I'm wondering, what is my first step or what is my on-ramp into this world, what do you guys recommend? We could start with you, Davide.
Yeah, I would say go download the editor and start playing with it. I mean, it's free and there's plenty of materials for automotive already in it. And who knows, maybe tomorrow you'll be working for Ferrari concept design.
Yeah, I would recommend to use the engine for also identifying the potential. I mean, it doesn't make sense to use game engines for every use case. So whether there is a potential for using the game engine technology for that particular use case, to just run it as a innovation silo. And in best case, you will have several of such kind of innovation silos in your company in different business departments. And having that, then you should start thinking about what kind of functionalities you have or you need as a base for enabling such kind of innovations more and more in your company. So to enable or to reduce the entry barrier for other departments to such kind of innovations, which means how can you give access to people using Unreal Engine? How can you train your people that they easily can start using Unreal Engine? And how can you also provide the marketing field inside the company that they are able to present their results to other departments? Because then it will enable others or bring other colleagues in your company to the idea, hey, that might be also interesting technology for me and for my use case.
I think to sort of riff off what Burak said there, once you have enough of these projects, we see a process by people joining those projects up and having an overall strategy. And that's when you can really start to implement business change. But the best way to start, identify a problem set and really try and figure it out. Another point I would say, you might be sitting in a company, and this is the first you've heard of Unreal Engine, this is the first you've heard of gaming technologies, but you think that they could be applicable to your job role. There's a good chance your company's already using it somewhere. Almost certainly game engine technologies, and very likely Unreal Engine as well. So, reach out internally, find the connections, see if there's some expertise you can draw on. If not, there's lots of ways to reach out to us here at Epic, and we can really accelerate your efforts. But get the editor, start to see if it can apply to your problem. The barrier entry is really low. Just click download and just get going.
The one thing I believe upon is showing people. PowerPoints, business cases, cost reduction are all interesting, but there's nothing like showing people what you can actually achieve with Unreal Engine to win them over.
Doug, when you're going out and presenting this to potential new clients, where do you usually see the light bulb turn on for people? Or where do you see the beginning of acceptance for this coming?
Two things. One of the best things to do is we have a lot of case studies. We continually produce case studies. that you can go and reference and show the innovation happening in other companies. I think in a way, almost like a little bit of jealousy or a little bit of wanting to be part of that is useful sometimes by showing success at other companies using Unreal Engine. So we find that sort of inspiring people in that way tends to be good. But the other thing is, I can't iterate enough what the other guys were saying, which is start a small project, try to really just prove one little point very, very quickly, show, don't tell, and you'd be surprised to see the light bulb turn on just off of like the smallest demo for the smallest concept. Sometimes can really just catch fire when it ignites the sort of the sort of problem solving passion that person might have.
So you're saying definitely show something that your competitor is doing with it, and that would be a likely motivator.
I mean, it sounds bad, but that is honestly there's a lot of showing something that a company in the field is doing, whether it's a competitor or not. It does two things. One, it makes you a bit scared that you might be behind the curve, and number two, what it does is it shows that the risk can't be so high if someone else is doing it, right? Like the first explorers all like don't make it to the Pacific, right? But then somebody comes and builds a railroad, right? And there's definitely a situation here where you can get on board with Unreal Engine today. This train hasn't left the station. There's still lots of opportunities for your company to innovate and take some small steps and really make some good progress early. And we are at that point where we're building the railroad to the coast on Unreal Engine. It's no longer trying to convince people to go on that first journey. The journeys have been taken. A lot of companies in a lot of different ways have taken that journey. It's now convincing people that the journey is repeatable and the journey can be a superhighway. And that's kind of where we're at, which is a really exciting part of the automotive industry journey through game technologies.
Yeah, we really love the fact that Epic listens to customers, whatever customer, and they're always improving the product upon those responses and that feedback. And it's something we really, really value and appreciate.
Well, thank you. That's very generous. I mean, we try to care about your project as much as you do. That's kind of our philosophy when we're trying to help you. So that's why we always kind of approach it from a per project basis, right? Let's make this project an absolute smash hit if we can. That's how we approach every interaction we have with every customer. So thank you for noticing.
We can also do more company specific topics without having you, because the tool is open. So it's open source. If we need like really BMW specific functionality, that we can do it by ourselves, and really you are not blocking us, right? I mean, this is also not always possible with every product on the market.
No, yeah, we are not a service company. We are a technology company. Our dream scenario is for you to take our technology, use it effectively because you're experts, and rely on us very, very little. And our job when you're starting out is to get you to that point, right? We want you to be at the point where you are self-sufficient and you are great at doing what you do with our technology.
That sounds like a pretty good point to maybe shift to our Q&A portion. Thank you guys so much for joining me here virtually. And yeah, we'll turn it over to the audience.